Bonjour! Welcome back to Morsels and Motors. In this video, I'm going to show you around this 2020 Citroen Ami electric quadricycle. There are plenty of other videos that have shown you kind of a bit of quirky things to do with it, you know, going around a McDonald's takeaway, that kind of thing, so I'm not going to do any of that. What I am going to do is I'm just going to show you around it really closely so you can get a really good feel as to what this car-ish is like. So let's get to it. So the first thing you can't ignore about the Citroen Ami is the fact that it looks pretty much the same from the front and from the back. And it looks pretty much the same from the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So much so that the doors actually open in opposite ways because they are literally the same panel of moulding. So the Ami, or as I probably say in this video, Ami because I'm used to the British pronunciation, is a quadricycle which has a special category of taxation class in France, meaning that you don't have to have a driving licence to drive it. And I think you can also drive it from the age of 14 years old. So it's fantastic for younger people who want to have a bit of independence, especially if they live somewhere where it's not easy to get around on public transport. Having said that, it only has a top speed of 46 kilometers per hour and a range of 70 kilometers, meaning that unless you live in a city, it isn't particularly practical unless you feel like having an enormous irate queue of traffic behind you. Although I said earlier that the car does look the same from the front and the back, it really actually doesn't, because the roof moulding is entirely different. Where the headlights are in the front, the tail and brake lights are in the back. The Ami is not metal, it's actually plastic, so it's the same sort of material as you would see in sort of a Portaloo kind of thing. It's a sort of moulded plastic, and it's built on a metal frame or chassis going all the way around the bottom and actually around the cage of the car, and we'll see that when we go inside in a minute. One of my favourite features is the 3D effect Citroen badge, which in actuality is completely flat. It's just drawn on to look like it's a proper metal badge reflecting the light, but it's not. I think one of the main things I want to get across in this video is quite how basic the Ami is. So everything is pared down to the absolute bare minimum that you need in a vehicle. The first thing to start with, as well as obviously the cheapness of the body mouldings, is as you go to the car you've got two keys. One is the door key and then one is the ignition key. So it's just like an 80s or 70s Volvo 340 in that respect. So to get into the car you've got these little push buttons. So that's it in the locked position, which means you can't open the door. So you put your smaller door key into it and give it a twist, and then that's unlocked. So then if I push it, it now pops the door out. And of course this driver's door opens as a suicide door. So it opens backwards essentially, which makes stepping into it a little bit more interesting than it ought to be. So let's have a look around the door to start with. Well, this is the driver's door. It's a left-hand drive car, and they only make them in left-hand drive, by the way. We have, first of all, this quite large, useful door pocket with a hat and sunglasses in. I'll come to those in a minute. You do have the exterior body is completely visible here in the door pocket. I think a bit like an original Mini, actually. You have a fabric door pull so that you can shut the door from the inside of the car. Very basic. Also very dirty. And this car's barely done any mileage, so really I wouldn't like to see how dirty that is with a little bit more use. Up higher on the door there is a window, and it is hinged in the middle and opens upwards just like a 2CV. So you click this little handle down and it pops out, and then you can lift the window up and it will click into place firmly like that, which gives you a bit of ventilation. To be honest, not a lot. It is though very difficult to then reach out of the car when you're inside it to pull this very stiff window down and slam it shut. It's functional, it works, but it's very basic. And just to finish off the tour of the door, we've got these little round door mirrors which are adjustable on both sides. Let's step inside the Ami and see how getting into it is like. Right, I'm inside the Ami, so let's give you a little flavour of what it's all actually like. I'll just continue with the theme of the door for a minute and show you the door pull to actually open the door. There's no way of unlocking the door from the inside or locking it. All you get is this little pull here that pops it open, like that. You'll also see that the passenger door pull is in a different place. It's down there because obviously this door opens like a conventional door opens the other way. I've put my phone on as wide an angle of video as possible so I can get as much of the car's interior in as I can, so that you can see exactly what it feels like in here. One of the first things you notice being inside the Ami, if you look up, is that you're surrounded by this metal frame that goes all along the sides of the roof and the front and across behind your head or above your head. You'll also notice that the quality of the welding is perhaps not the highest ever seen on a piece of transport, and neither is the quality of the sort of seam sealer or whatever it is they've put in certain areas as well. It very much looks like it was not made by robots, I would say. The other thing you really notice in the Ami is that you sit really far back in it. So if you can see where my head is, it's kind of concurrent with the back door pillar and the little window behind the door. So the whole of the door and the whole of the front side windows are way in front of me, and there is no way I can reach obviously the steering wheel, but it's impossible to reach the dashboard or the front of the dashboard without really leaning forwards to get to it. So this cup holder that's in here, for example, is completely pointless when you're driving, because you can't steer the car and also lean this far forwards to get at your cup. So it's not the most ergonomically designed vehicle in the world. Looking around the cabin, we have a sea of grey and orange. I think that's safe to say the theme of this car. So let's start with the driving controls and show you those. So we have a steering wheel which is actually relatively comfortable, but it is made of very hard plastic. And these Citroen symbols in this are actually 3D, but the sort of shadowing is also sort of part of the symbol, and no airbag, funnily enough. In terms of actual controls, on this left-hand stalk we've got the controls for the horn, very loud, the wipers, so we'd have intermittent and low, and I think there's a wash if you push it towards you, and then the indicator left and right, and they don't self-cancel either. Let's do a wiper test, shall we? Just one cute little wiper. And should we do a squirt test as well? Go on then. Push it towards me. Hey. In the middle is the dashboard instrument cluster. I'll come back to that in a moment. To the right of the steering wheel we've got a few very basic controls here. We've got a place to store your phone there, and then a USB socket to charge it. Hazard warning lights. The fan, which blows air through that little vent there just in front of the windscreen. And then the other button is to make that air warm. So it's not a guarantee that you get warm air, it's just air, warm air. It's very loud, I'll show you. So that's air and warm air. The air also quite significantly depletes the battery life, so you don't want to be using that too much if you're worrying about your range. Over on the passenger side of the car we've got a shopping bag hook there, a little space there in front of the passenger seat for some luggage, and actually it's quite spacious. We've got the passenger's floor and then the passenger seat itself. So one thing that's particularly noteworthy is that the passenger seat is set way further back than the driver's seat, and it's in a fixed position, you can't move it forwards or backwards, and that's so that you can have that space in front of the passenger for the luggage. The driver's seat does obviously go forwards and backwards, which then does give you a little sort of cubby hole behind to hold a few bits and pieces. We've got a high-vis jacket in there. And obviously the passenger door is identical to the driver's door in every way, including the direction in which it is built. Let me show you the Ami's driving controls then. So the first thing you need to do is, in order to start the car, is put your foot on the brake, take the ignition key and put it in the ignition there, turn the key on, and then you've got to twist the key and hold it towards the back for a second until it beeps. There. And that means the car is now on, it's started, which is quite fun. The instrument cluster is kind of hard to see, and that is actually true of reality. It's very, very difficult to see it if there's some sunlight. And so you can just about see that it's 0 kilometers an hour at the minute. We're in neutral. The car has done 416 kilometers in total, and it's got a 45 kilometer range left in the battery. And the parking brake is on. So the next thing we need to do to set off in the car is to select gear, and that is down here to the left of the driver's seat. And you then press the button for D for drive, R for reverse, or N, which is what we're currently in neutral. So if I click D for drive, nothing happens other than the D comes up now on the dashboard, and then R, for example, comes up if I press R. But if I press D, we're now ready to go. Before I actually go, I would need to put the handbrake down, which is the clunkiest, most manual feeling handbrake I've ever come across in such an advanced feeling car. And then just to get going, all you do is put your foot on the accelerator and off we pop. To reverse the car is incredibly simple. I select the R button there and go backwards. And because the car is so small, you're literally looking, I mean, the back is right behind you. So you can exactly see where the back end of it is, which makes it really easy to drive and manoeuvre. Up here on the dashboard we've got some funky colour coordinated, well orange anyway, storage facilities. So I think a cup holder, some nonsense in there. We've got a little hinged pouch here, pen holder maybe, I have no idea. Some Lego, I have no idea. This does come out and become a baguette holder as I've decreed it to be. There's a cup holder just in front of the sort of instrument cluster here, which again is slightly pointless, and the passenger doesn't get any cup holder activity at all. One of my main criticisms of driving the Ami is this glass roof, which although is really nice and makes the cabin feel really light and airy, it means that the sun, if you're facing it at all, is searing into your retinas and you can't see anything. You certainly can't see the speedometer because the reflections are so bad in it, and so you end up having to drive around wearing a baseball cap most of the time, because of course there are no inbuilt sun visors of any kind, although I think there are some accessory aftermarket ones that you can get. There's also no central rearview mirror, but actually, having got used to the car, that's not a problem. You've got pretty good visibility in both door mirrors, right and left. Another big criticism we have of the Ami actually using it is that it really does steam up in here. Because there's no proper ventilation other than these tiny side windows and that little fan there, the windscreen can really steam up quite a lot, and you can't reach it from your driving position either to give it a wipe if it's misted up. So that's a little bit problematic sometimes. And along the same lines, if it's cold weather outside, it is freezing in this car because there isn't really a proper heater. Yes, you can heat the air that's heating the windscreen, but that's not really enough to heat the cabin. So really it's a case of layering up and having a scarf and a big coat and that kind of thing, almost as if you're outside but you happen to just about be inside. So let's take the Ami out on the open road so you can see a little bit about how it drives. The sun is quite annoying coming in through the roof. It's right directly into my retinas. So I think the only way of driving this car with any amount of sunshine is with a baseball cap. So I think they should have a Citroen Ami baseball cap as standard equipment. It feels really fast, doesn't it, whatever speed you're doing. It's very fun though, we get so many looks. It's also really loud. For an electric car, I was expecting it to be silent. It's also really, really bad on speed bumps because I don't think it has much suspension. We discovered earlier whilst I was driving, or I discovered earlier whilst I was driving it around the little lake, that it has the most amazing turning circle I've ever experienced. so it just sort of turns on nothing, almost in its own space, like it's on casters, which is quite fun. Oh, why do we have to have so many speed bumps? It does kind of feel like it's screaming when you're really going for it. It's the popcorn sound. If I sing it, it isn't copyright, is it? Can't stop singing now. Also, in the really bright sunlight, you cannot see the speedometer or the instrument panel at all. All I can see is a reflection of my face. Just really unhelpful for telling me at what speed I'm going. Luckily, I can't break the speed limit, so I suppose it doesn't really matter what speed I'm going. I'll go whatever speed I feel like. That's appropriate for the circumstances. We're just entering a 20. Oh no, I've actually got to look at my speedometer for the first time to make sure I'm not breaking the speed limit. Interestingly, because this car doesn't have a gearbox, it just has the motor that goes faster and faster the faster you go. There's no gears. It means it's always in the right gear to be doing this slower speed, though, which is quite nice, because every other car I take down here and try and do 20 in, second is too low and third is way too high, so it's never fun. It's quite fun just kind of going flat out. Well, there we go. It's top down at 45 kilometres per hour. Foot down to the floor, won't go any faster. Anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed this little tour around this fabulous but flawed little Citroen Ami. I've tried to make it a little bit different to some of the other videos that are online because I wanted to show you really what the full experience of being in it was like, so I hope you've managed to get that. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and I would be really grateful if you would consider subscribing to my channel because, well, it makes me feel a bit better. If there are a few more people watching these videos, makes it more worthwhile doing them. And I think that the slightly eclectic nature of the cars I'm currently experiencing should be a little bit of a fun experience and escapism in this rather bleak time that we're currently living in. Take care, and I'll see you soon.